So, you want to know about the latest in comic books and what's out this week? Fortunately, you are in the right place, my friend. Hang on a sec. Last week we told you about two trade paperbacks that were out that we were going to have a look at, and we asked you what was the link between the two of them. This one, Dark Tower, The Long Road Home by Stephen King, and this one, Lock and Key by Joe Hill and Gabriel Rodriguez. The link, of course, and thanks to Pete on the comments, Pete Sandusky worked it out, is that this one, written by Stephen King, well, this Joe Hill, that's his dad, isn't it? Do you see what I mean? That's how it works. They're actually related, father and son. So let's look at the work of the son first, yeah? And what's great about this book is the artwork, Gabriel Rodriguez's artwork is sumptuous, it's fabulous, it's really cartoony, but it kind of fits with the style of this book. What is the style of this book? It's really hard to say because whilst it has horror elements to it, it's not a horror book. It's got real kind of interesting moments of kind of interaction between family members, but it's not a family book by any means, right? There are funny moments, but it's not a comedy book. Is it a suspense thriller? Not quite either, but it takes elements of all of those things to create its own thing. And I think that this is why one of the reasons that people are so excited about Joe Hill's writing. Obviously, he's Stephen King's son, and he's inherited his father's ability to spin a yarn, but this is clearly, there is a kingness about this, right? This is definitely something with its own flavour. Well worth checking out. If you haven't read Lock and Key already, this is a great way into it and a really good looking book for your bookshelf as well. Lock and Key, Rodriguez and Hill, this is one you should definitely own. We also promised we'd look at this trade paperback this week. This is The Dark Tower, The Long Road Home. And the story is very, very Tolkien-esque. I think this is Stephen King getting his Tolkien on. There is an epic quest, a young man and his friends on an epic quest, all right, across a massive landscape. There's a Gollum. In this book, there's a character called Shimi who gets kind of transformed by something outside of him in much the way that Gollum is transformed by the ring. They have this big epic journey in much the same way that the Fellowship does. He's created his own world. You know, he hasn't quite gone to the extent of Tolkien in creating languages or whatever, but this is only the second arc in this story, so we don't know what else is yet to come on that. But whatever it is, at the end of this book, you really want to find out what happens next, as Roland, the main character, is in a very, very different place and has changed significantly from the character we saw in the first book. So if you really want to keep up with Stephen King and his new Midworld, then this is definitely a book that you should be checking out. It's The Long Road Home, available in trade paperback now. Sadly, the current arc on Amazing Spider-Man comes to an end in this episode. Amazing Spider-Man 573. Now, this is New Ways to Die Part 6. This storyline written by Dan Slott and drawn by John Romita Jr. And because of that artwork, this had a real classic, back to the old days Spider-Man feel about it. Anyway, lots of different new villains popping up in this story arc and lots going on. And if you love Spider-Man, if you've kind of fell in love with the classic old school Spider-Man, then this is definitely going to be right up your street. The only downside to this book is that because this is the end of the story arc, this is the last John Romita Jr. Artwork we're going to see for a while on Spider-Man, I think, and that's a real pity. But it's the only downside to this book that I could find. I really enjoyed it. Spider-Man 573 is out this week. Another book that we've talked about before on Fantastic Realm, but we're going to talk about again because I'm really enjoying it at the moment, is Captain Britain and MI13. And what I love about this book is that it's set in the UK and feels like it's set in the UK. Paul Cornell has written things like Doctor Who in the past, and he's English and really understands the language of the UK and the way that we talk and the way that we deal with things. So it's not like lots of often you'll see books that are set in Britain with people in bowler hats saying things like "I say" and stopping everything for tea at 4 o'clock. There's none of that nonsense in this book. Yeah, he really understands the UK and sets up and makes Captain Britain, fleshes it out in a way that makes him feel like a top-level Marvel character rather than a kind of budget-level, kind of Z-list Marvel character, which is sometimes felt like in the past. So if you really want to kind of experience the Marvel universe as filtered by this great nation we call the United Kingdom, then you should be reading this Captain Britain, and MI13, and this one's issue number 6 out this week. Also worth mentioning this week is Uncanny X-Men. This is issue number 503. The Matt Fraction and Ed Brubaker's run on this. Also worthy of note is Greg Land, the guy who does the pencils on this. And for me, this book represents the cutting edge of mainstream American comics, right? This is pretty much as good as they get for those sorts of mainstream, big superhero comics. Do you know what I mean? The artwork is beautiful. It brings together the best of hand-drawn and computer manipulated imagery. I think it looks great. The story kind of re-explores what's quite familiar territory, i.e. the X-Men. We've kind of been reading X-Men books since the 60s, or some of us have anyway, right? And I just think that this is just a really good example of what modern comic books of the current day are about. It's out this week, issue number 503 of Uncanny X-Men. Check it out. Well, that's pretty much all we've got time for on Fantastic Realm this week. Thanks very much for joining us, and thank you so much for your comments, your emails, your ratings. Keep them coming in, and we'll catch you next week. You can find further info and buy any of the books we reviewed at fantasticrealm.co.uk, and don't forget, if you quote the code FAN1 you'll get yourself a 10% discount. But you can also buy stuff at our eBay store, and don't forget you can join our online communities at MySpace or YouTube, where you can subscribe to these videos, and feel free to leave us a comment, rate us, and don't forget, we're a shop, so come down and check out what we've got in stock.